This versus debate is rated B for blurred. Grab your swords, drones, and comic books because we're about to get black and nerdy. You have been warned.
What's up, y'all, and welcome to Versus Tuesday, brought to you by the Blurred Mob. I'm your host, Phoop, joined by my co-host, Ryun. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any other streaming service, make sure you hit that follow button so you can get updates from the mob.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn those bell notifications for future uploads, and leave us a comment about how much you enjoyed this video.
Hey. So it's another Phoop and Ryan episode. Ralph is on hiatus. So me and Ryan are going to be finishing off our Justice League versus Avengers tournament for the final round. Before we get into our 60 seconds, if this is your first time listening to a Versus Tuesday episode or if this is your first time tuning into the tournament, let me explain the rules. So me and Ryan will have 60 seconds to choose our choice for each battle. After we finish our 60 seconds, we're going to do a 10-minute rebuttal phase if me and Ryan chose different options. If not, we'll do a 5-minute discussion rooting on the other side. After that 10 or 5 minutes, we're going to reveal the audience score, and we'll do a minute or two response to that. So, that was a lot, but hopefully you guys had time to read what was on the screen. But
I ain't gonna make it sit up there longer after I video edit now.
You don't even make the rules, the little screen for the rules. You don't even make it.
Animation. I put it in the video and I make it animated.
Well, look. Ryan being stingy, y'all, so make sure y'all rewind, pause the video, read the rules, and then come back to this point. But before we hop into the 60 seconds, this is the final round, Ryan. So how have you felt about the tournament overall?
Our fans have greatly disappointed me. I see that if we were in a room talking about comic book heroes, I would not agree with half of them. But aside from that, this has been fun. We got actually way more interactions than I was expecting. And I'm very happy with that. It's been fun. This has been an interesting versus. You were there when this idea was broken down, and this felt like my love child, so I'm glad it was successful.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it. Definitely with the interaction. Starting from round 1, I wasn't expecting as many people to participate as you guys did. So, like, I greatly appreciate, with this being our first tournament, to get as much participation as we did, which makes me hopeful for the next one that we'll get an even bigger turnout. But it's been a long month of recording every week, getting out the results, getting out the next voting poll, and like, it's been fun in it, but I think I'm definitely ready for it to be over, just so I can take that breather of it's over.
Need to decompress.
Yeah, but I'm definitely proud of this being our big Versus Tuesday event. And I think I've enjoyed it as much. Like, just saying it again is just thanks to everybody who's been watching, listening, and following us and keeping up with the updates. Taking the time to vote, taking the time to respond. That's what, to me, has made this tournament enjoyable. That the fact that we've gotten as much interaction as we could to even make it this far as the final round. So, thank you. Big thank you. Phoop gives everybody a big thank you. Despite what goes down here tonight, I still want to I still want to say thank you. Despite what goes down tonight, I want to say thank you. So, we're going to start with our one and only battle. The final round is Batman versus Thor. Which hero would make an even better villain? We're gonna start with Ryan. 60 seconds on the clock. 3, 2, 1.
Maybe. I'm speaking out of pettiness, but Thor beat my top pick. I feel like Thor should have been kicked far to the back, so I'm picking Batman. I'm picking the Dark Knight. You wanna know why?
Other than the pettiness.
Other than the pettiness. I think you mentioned it in one of our previous episodes, and when I got to think on it, it was pretty cool. Thinking about the fact that this man was trained by Ra's al Ghul, thinking about what his motivations would be if he was dark, he already got like a twisted sense of justice. He would be an interesting multi-layered villain. I would be interested to see how far down he could go down the dark path. I like to see what type of influences with his own his canon comic book villains would influence his own decisions. Would he be influenced by Ra's al Ghul's mindsets and ideologies and etc.?
Okay. So despite the pettiness, Ryan has some reasons. So he chose Batman. So the 60 seconds on me. 60 seconds on the clock. 3, 2, 1. I thought about this long and hard, and
Pause.
the tables have turned. I'm picking Thor. I did my research, and the man has some abilities that had me like, okay, wait a minute. He can manipulate the weather. He's basically invulnerable. He has super senses, so he can see, like they said, like all the way to the other side of like some country. He has super hearing. He has this thing called the Odin Force, which is a combination of his powers, his father's powers, and two of his uncles. If you've seen Thor Love and Thunder, if we want to add that in, he can give his powers to other people. And then he's the fastest Marvel character. He beat Quicksilver. So and they said he's flown so fast that he's went back in time. So just seeing that just went to my Flash argument. I did my research because I didn't want to step into this versus, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but I just don't want to step into this versus and not understand why you guys made the pick. Like I can spit out facts for Batman all day, but I wanted to figure out what you guys had on Thor, and from what I saw, I was convinced.
Even with that research, turn on the timer, bro. Because I'm very curious. I'm very curious.
All right. So 10 minutes on the clock. We are doing a full rebuttal phase. Ron chose Batman. I chose Thor. Let's go at it. 3, 2, 1.
Is there a double standard here that I'm missing? Because you said all those things about Thor. So why didn't Superman or Flash make it to the end on the DC side?
But that's not my fault. So I'm gonna put it like this. I am a DC fan through and through. So I know what Superman can do. I know what Flash can do. On a Marvel level, I know to a certain point what everybody can do. I've already said it that Thor is not my favorite Marvel character, but it had to be something that kept everybody pushing him to the front, to the fact that he made it into the finals. So I sat down, I took out the time to figure out, what's the juice on Thor, and the man has some abilities that I wasn't aware of, and which basically makes this man unstoppable. Like, I think the blanket statement of him being a god has been an excuse that we've thrown out these past couple verses, but this man has some shit.
I mean, I'll give you that. But the reason I don't think is I don't think he'll make a good villain. I feel like he could be popular, but it just sounds like another. What's the big bad in DC that grabbed Superman by the cape and threw him on the ground? Basically, like he's just another Darkseid. He's another big.
But Darkseid is one of Superman's biggest villains. So if you're gonna put Thor beside Darkseid, that just invalidates your whole argument.
No, that's why it's boring. I'm like the big bads who are just bad. Because if Thor was a villain, he wouldn't need a reason. It would just be he's this god who's bad. We gotta beat him.
But
I don't find those interesting anymore.
But if Thor's supposed to be the king of Asgard, and we've seen Thor, he's lived all these years. We see how he cherishes his friend. We see how he cherishes honor and his family at that. So I think it would still be the same thing. Like, even though Thor is a god, he has some layers of depth to him. So what would be that motivation that just makes him use his power for evil?
But then if you was writing a story or a comic without giving your hero Naruto level plot armor,
Mm-hmm.
who would make a compelling protagonist to go against Thor if he's the antagonist? What would you do to turn that into a compelling story? Because if you're staying true to how the character is written in terms of his powers and abilities,
I mean, it could still be. I feel like it could still be everybody who would go against another Marvel god if Thor was with them. Like, I don't want to step away from the fact that these heroes have fought literal gods without Thor. So these same heroes could still stand against Thor, you know?
So are they depicting Thor in the MCU as he should be then? Because maybe that's my confusion. Because even in the way that they depict him, he seems kind of nerfed. Like, if you're describing Thor as this god who can do this stuff, shouldn't he have like wiped the floor with Thanos, regardless of the hammer or not?
But I feel you, but I think it goes down to cinema. They had to write a compelling story. He could have mopped the floor with Thanos, but the thing in Infinity War is that Thor didn't show up to fight Thanos until the end of the movie. So we went through a whole hour and something before we got to the Battle of Wakanda, and that's when Thor showed up and started wiping the floor with everybody, and then tried to go for the kill for Thanos. So I don't think they nerfed him. I think they did exactly what, if they would have had Thor from the beginning of Infinity War all the way to the end, the movie should not have been as long as it was.
Should have been 15 minutes long.
So they kept, but as we saw in Endgame, when he showed up, he got to the first 5 minutes of Endgame was him chopping off Thanos' head.
I mean, okay, I'll give you that. It's just that I like a little bit more variety in my villains. The last great movie for me, and we reviewed it, was The Batman. I loved how they depicted the Riddler. Mm-hmm. I loved how even the Batman in that show wasn't written as this just overtly bright default hero. And the Riddler was a very compelling villain to me. I barely knew anything about the Riddler. But when I watched that movie, I was like, I would love to see him again. The Joker, I would love him, but I love those type of characters.
So my counter question is, so you don't think if they had to write a villain Thor arc, they couldn't do it?
I don't think it would be anything outside of the norm. I think it would hit all of the safe points on a checklist in terms of how to write a super big bad villain, but I don't think it'll be anything new. I don't think it'll be anything breakneck or a blockbuster hit in terms of newness and creativity.
I think it would be interesting based on how they do it. So if I wanted to compare this to how they wrote Superman in Injustice, is that they pulled out all the stops for this man. Magic, Greek gods. They had the ground teams, the superpowered teams all going against them. I don't think it would be too far-fetched for the Marvel side to do the same thing for Thor, especially when he's already linked in with the gods. Like, I could see the same storyline between Thor and Superman if Thor was to go bad.
But that's why I wasn't voting for Superman. That's exactly why I wasn't voting for him.
I feel you. I don't know. I did my research, and I think besides the fact that he's a god, he has the time travel thing against him. the hammer itself, he has his own abilities, and then when you add the hammer onto it, he just has mega abilities. Like, I won't say that Batman would not be able to stand against them. I'm just saying I looked into Thor beside past the point of him being a god and the abilities that he has past being a god. I feel like maybe some things to reckon with if he was to ever become a villain.
I'll say this: if someone wrote me and said, "Oh, there's a Thor comic or Thor movie that you should check out," unless it's Thor against the rest of Asgard or it's the War of the Gods and like planets are being split in half, the universe is being
But
destroyed, I'd rather see Batman as a villain if I
but
had to pick.
that's another thing too I forgot to mention in my 60 seconds, but they've said that Thor has so much power that he's destroyed planets on accident.
So there would be nothing to watch, bro. Like, he's
but
all powerful.
But I think the story would be compelling because of what would the opposition do. Because I think for me that's what made Injustice so good. What is Batman going to do against Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Shazam, Cyborg, and all of the rest of the superpowers who teamed up with Superman? What was the opposition going to do to stop him? And I feel like that's what made the story interesting. So if you had Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, Hulk, the rest of the Avengers going against Thor and whoever else was standing beside him, given that the four people that I mentioned would be against Thor, I think that would be interesting to see.
It's like, I get it, but it's so one sided. Like, me personally, I would love to see Batman as a villain. In comparison to Thor, not in general, but in comparison to Thor, because yes, he's a man, yes, he's human, he's can easily get offed by a bullet or whatever or blade, but at the same time, seeing that he trained, seeing that he worked hard, seeing his motivations, I would like to see him go against a nice competitor, as like if the competitor was the protagonist and Batman happened to be the antagonist in a villain standpoint.
So who would be your so I'm gonna ask the question you asked me to you. Who would be your chosen protagonist to go against Batman?
My chosen protagonist, I could think someone fun like Cyborg would be interesting. Like if I'm just looking at like DC heroes or like Justice League members, I could see Cyborg being fun and not being just an easy defeat. Since Flash kept moving on up, I think that would kind of be interesting because I think Batman would be able to see be able to think ahead and be like, oh yeah, he finna use Time Force. Let me try to stop it if he has time to plan ahead. I could see a couple of folks being good. And if he had allies like Ra's al Ghul and all of them, I think that'd be interesting too. Sorry, this is rude. My phone's not on vibrate. I think that'd be very interesting in comparison to Thor.
I would not read a Batman versus Cyborg comic. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Batman has already hacked into Cyborg systems multiple times. He could shut him down and don't even have to be in the same room. That's not interesting to watch.
So even if Cyborg was like the hero with a little bit of plot armor, you wouldn't think that was interesting?
No, because if all Batman has to do is click the off button, what? You're a walking vulnerability. That is what you are. Or he could hack into the whole operation.
Like, I think that'd be interesting.
I don't know.
What was that movie where the folks hacked into the Skype call Unfriended?
That wasn't hacked. That was that demonic shit.
Well, am I thinking about the right one with those black not black as in black people, but like dark web folks was like had the laptop and they hacked into it.
That's the second one. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one was really some demonic shit. The second one was the second one was the dark web one when they had set them up.
Yeah.
But all right. So our 10-minute rebuttal is over. We are about to reveal the audience score. So for Batman versus Thor, we got 11 votes.
The votes went down.
All the way down. Batman won by 64% and Thor lost by 36%.
Thank you. Audience, thank you. Find a
What happened?
effing Lee.
I want to say this though. What happened to the Thor fans? Where the Thor fans at?
They thought he was going to win. That's what it was. There's like Norse mythology for the win.
Not y'all didn't vote because y'all thought Thor was going to take it. See, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Y'all gave it up at the end.
I'm not mad at it though. I'm not mad at it at all. I think Batman, if I was living in Gotham and Batman just showed up and said, yeah, it's a wrap for that superhero stuff, I'd be like, man, what? You've been the only person stopping all of these villains from killing us all, and you decided to do what?
he stopped and look at Joker and be like, you know what? I do want to see the world burn. The Joker gonna be like, huh?
I could see this though. It would be so funny because this happened in there's a movie called Justice League Crisis on Two Earths where Batman had a alternate counterpart called Owlman, and they were villains. And the Joker and Lex Luthor, their alternate counterparts were the Justice League. So the Joker actually was the hero in this scenario. But just knowing the Joker's personality, he wouldn't be down with that. He would be so mad if Batman became a villain because he ain't got nobody to play with no more.
He wouldn't necessarily be a hero, but he'll just quit. He'll be like, I don't even want to do this no more. You took the fun out of it.
It would be so funny if Joker became a hero to Batman's villain because he still wants, to have that back and forth. So when you do something evil, I'm going to show up.
Okay.
All right.
The end of the tournament.
The final round, and Batman is the winner. All right. But this is the end of our Justice League versus Avengers tournament. Leave in the comments. Hit us up on social media. Let us know how you felt about the results, how you felt about the tournament as a whole. We will definitely use whatever feedback you guys give us for the next tournament that we do, which will be a minute. After this, we're going to take a break from Versus Tuesdays for a while, so make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Blurred Mob Pod, on Twitter at the Blurred Mob, on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at the Blurred Mob Podcast to make sure you see updates from when we'll be returning with Versus Tuesdays. We'll still be doing mob reviews, regular episodes, and some mini segments in between. But Versus Tuesday will be on hiatus for a while. So I pretty much did the outro. So thanks, Ron, for joining me on another episode of Versus Tuesday. And this is the mob checking out. Peace.